Okay, so this is Station 1's materials. Pretty simple. We got some marshmallows here, and the first thing we need to do is actually pull the plunger out of the back of this syringe so that we can put a marshmallow in it, and then it says to put the plunger back in until it's touching but not squishing our marshmallow. Then at this point we put the cap on the end of that syringe and we pull back on the plunger. So you can see that my marshmallow after, when I'm not pulling on the plunger, looks a little different already, but make sure when you're writing your observations here, I'm going to shift this over so I can do this right here, that it's when we're pulling this plunger back, it's kind of hard, that you observe that change. So I'm going to get a new marshmallow and do it one more time silently so you can observe it best possible way. There we go. And that is our station. So like I've said to students in class, my recommendation is start with what I'm changing, or what the person doing this station is changing first, what we have control of. Skip the question that asks, for now, skip the question that asks what didn't change. Focus on me pulling back on the syringe. That's all I was doing here. Then maybe go to what you saw happen as a result and choose what variable you saw change as a result of me pulling back on that plunger. And then after you've figured out what is changing and how, then it's a little bit easier sometimes to figure out what wasn't changing. And that is saying that our next station is preheated. So let's jump on over to station number 2. So this station isn't a whole lot to do. I'm just going to make sure that you can clearly see that we have 2 balloons here, and they're both sitting on water, mostly because this red one had to be sitting on water instead of directly on this hot plate, because if I put a balloon directly on the hot plate, it would melt and then pop. But I still wanted this to be on the hot plate. And what our directions or instructions say is to observe these, that they started off at the same temperature. In fact, they both started off looking pretty much like that over there, which is just a room temperature balloon sitting on water, just so that you don't think that the water is what caused the change. That's just normal, plain old water that's been sitting out there all day. And so this one has not just been sitting out on its beaker, it's also on our hot plate. And the sign was warning people in class that this hot plate is hot, so they shouldn't touch it. But that's also hopefully telling you which variable we were controlling at this station when we set this up. So make sure you find your variables here as well. Determine what way they're moving when we go from our original balloon to our balloon, our new balloon. So we're going from green to red, basically. Oh, this balloon is so sad. It's kind of been stuck in this beaker all day, so I'm actually going to show you these side by side. This has been happening, and it kind of looks like a normal balloon until you start looking at the end of it. Whatever part has been touching that hot water has gotten a little bit, I don't know, funny looking. All right, here at station 3, I've already kind of done some prep work because I have put just an itty bitty little bit of water down in this can. Let's see if we can focus on it. Yeah, it's not even enough to cover the entire bottom of the can anymore, but it is definitely boiling down in there. We've got some steam coming out, fogging up the lens of my camera. It's a little harder to see at some of these angles. We have a little bit of steam coming out there. Good. So all that I'm going to do now is grab this can by the base and flip it over upside down into this water that we've got sitting here. This water is really cold, so it's going to have a rather drastic change happen to it because of that. So let's try and do this. Okay, you can tell that wasn't because of my beaker tongs. It almost jumped out of my tongs, and now that's a whole lot more water than we had seen in there before. And this is our can after we just went from here upside down to there. So make your observations and decide what variable I changed, what happened as a result, and then remember to jump back up and decide what variable didn't change, and then choose your graph. And that's it. Alright, so here in station 4, we have a little candle that's stuck into a rubber stopper and is sitting on top of a couple of pennies. That's just to kind of get the candle stable and on the bottom of this aluminum pan that has this green water in it. The water is only green to help us see it a little bit better. And really the pennies are there to keep this just slightly lifted up off the bottom surface of the pan, just for little reasons that'll hopefully be clear in a moment. And then this graduated cylinder you saw behind it, probably sitting there, we're actually going to be putting over this candle upside down. So in just a moment I'm going to be pushing this over the candle all the way down into that water, and we're going to be able to see how that changes. And I want you to be focused on how the gas in this graduated cylinder changes. That's what we're studying, is gases for these variables. So let's do this in 3, 2, 1. There we go. I'll show you the whole thing now. Far out, then get close. You can see that that is a little bit different than you might have expected. Get it to focus, yeah, a little bit more. You can see the candle in there. That's why it was sputtering before, because it was previously covered. So that's it. This one has a little bit less structured observations for you to be making, or, well, you observe the water and the gas inside the cylinder, but then with the variables, remember you're talking about pressure, volume, and temperature, and I want to hear from you about all 3 of those, whether they increase, decrease, stay the same, etc. So answer those questions, and then all we got left is station 5, which isn't really something to do, it's something for you to kind of think about based on all this stuff you've seen. Alright, so this is all we really have here at station 5. I've got a Florence flask and a balloon. That's what they looked like before, and then I used materials and processes from these other 4 stations that you've been watching me do, and those changes you've seen, to get this balloon inside that flask. Now, just to demonstrate to you, if I put the balloon inside that flask, that's not the only step required to turn that into this. And you might be able to see there's some other stuff that's kind of involved. Maybe. So in that space, I just want you to tell me how you think I managed this trick using what you've learned, and kind of think from those other stations. Now, I don't need it to be perfect. I just want you to show me that you understood, kind of understand or understood, either way, hopefully both, whatever was going on at those stations, and you have a reasonable explanation for how we might make this happen. This is not going to be the difference between you passing or failing, or even between an A and a B. I think when I have this set up, it's 1 point for if you got this perfectly correct versus if you were close and most of the way there. If you said she put the balloon in the flask, well, we've already seen that's not the case. There's definitely a lot more involved. So that's the only time when you'd really be losing a significant number of points on this part, is if you just say something that doesn't show thought. But so, put some thought into it, make your best guess possible, and then just, it doesn't have to be perfect, but tell me, like, first she did this, then this, then this, or step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Shouldn't be much longer than that. And that's it. So get that finished up and turned in, and you're done.